Mount Olympus is the highest mountain in Greece and the second highest mountain in the Balkans. It is located in the Olympus Range on the border between Thessaly and Macedonia, between the prefectures of Pieria and Larissa, about 80 km southwest from Thessaloniki. Mount Olympus has 52 peaks, deep gorges, and exceptional biodiversity. The highest peak, Mytikas, meaning nose, rises to 2,917 meters. It is one of the highest peaks in Europe in terms of topographic prominence. Olympus was notable in ancient Greek mythology as the home of the 12 Olympians, on the Mytikas peak. Mount Olympus is also noted for its very rich flora with several species. It has been the first national park of Greece, since 1938, and a world's biosphere reserve. Every year thousands of people visit Olympus to admire its nature, to tour its slopes, and reach its peaks. Organized mountain refuges and various mountaineering and climbing routes are available to visitors who want to explore its nature. The usual starting point for it is the town of Litokarou, on the eastern foothills of the mountain, 100 km from Thessaloniki, where, in the beginning of every summer, the Mountain Olympus Marathon terminates. Geography: the shape of Olympus was formed by rain and wind, which produced an isolated tower almost 3,000 meters above the sea, which is only 18 kilometers away at Litokarou. Olympus has many peaks and an almost circular shape. The mountain has a circumference of 150 kilometers, an average diameter of 26 kilometers, and 600 square kilometers of area. To the northwest lies the Vlach village of Kokinoplou. The Makryrima stream separates Olympus from the Massif of Vougra. The villages Petra, Ntou and Dion lie to the northwest, while on the eastern side there is the town of Litokarou, where Ăʻlɪmpəs bisects the Massif of Olympus. On its southeastern side, the Xyliana Gorge divides Mount Olympus from Kato Olympos, while on its southwestern foothills, there are the villages Sycamoni and Karia. The Agios Triadas Sparma Monastery and the village Pythion lie to the west. Olympus Drive foothills are known as the Zyra Campi, containing chaparral and small animals. Further east, the plain of Dion is fertile and watered by the streams that originate on Olympus. Geology: Olympus is one of the relatively later mountains of Greece, as it is estimated that the age of its main rock formations is no more than 20 million years, when the greatest part of Greece was in the bottom of a shallow sea, where the main materials were deposited, that later formed the current rock formations. Various geological events that followed caused the emergence of the whole region and the sea. Around 1 million years ago glaciers covered Olympus and created its plateaus and depressions. With the temperature rise that followed, the ice was melted and the streams that were created swept away large quantities of crushed rock in the lowest places, forming the alluvial fans, that spread out all over the region from the foothills of the mountain to the sea. Morphology: the complicated geological past of the region is obvious on the morphology of Olympus and its national park. Features include deep gorges and dozens of smooth peaks, many of them an altitude of more than 2,000 meters, including Agios Antonios, Kalorgeros, Toumpa, and Prophytos Ilias. However, it is the central, almost vertical, rocky peaks, that impress the visitor, over Litokarou, where the relief of the mountain displays on the horizon an apparent V, between two peaks of almost equal height. In the left limb is Mytikas, Greece's highest peak, and on the right one Stephani, that presents the most impressive and steep peak of Olympus, with its last sharply rising 200 meters presenting the greatest challenge for climbers. Further south, Skolio, completes an arc of about 200 degrees, with its steep slopes forming on the west side, like a wall, an impressive precipitous amphitheatrical cavity, 700 meters in depth and 1,000 meters in circumference, the Megala Kazania. On the east side of the high peaks the steep slopes form zone-like parallel folds, the zone area. Even narrower and steeper scorings, the Laukia, led to the peak. In the north side, between Stephani and Prophytos Ilias, extends the Muses Plateau, at 2,550 meters, while further south, almost in the center of the Massif, extends the alpine tundra region of Bara, at an altitude of 2,350 meters. Olympus has numerous ravines and gullies. Most distinguishable of the ravines are those of Mavroigos Ənipes and Mavritsis Spamos near Bara and cut the massif into oval portions. On the southern foothills the Great Gorge of Xyliana, 13 km long, consists a natural limit that separates the mountain from Lower Olympus. There are also many precipices and a number of caves, even nowadays unexplored. The form and layout of the rocks favor the emergence of numerous springs, mainly lower than 2000 m, of small seasonal lakes and streams and of a small river, Ənipes, with its springs in the site Prionia and its estuary in the Aegean Sea. Etymology: there are multiple theories for the origin of the name, sky, bright, high, rock. One theory holds that Olympus is a pre-Hellenic toponym that simply means mountain. In Turkish, the mountain is known as Semavortavi, meaning heaven's house. Mythology: in Greek mythology Olympus was the home of the 12 Olympian gods of the ancient Greek world. In myth, Olympus formed after the gods defeated the Titans in the Titan War, and soon the place was inhabited by the gods. It is the setting of many Greek mythical stories. The 12 Olympian gods lived in the gorges, where there were also their palaces. Pantheon was their meeting place and theatre of their stormy discussions. The throne of Zeus hosted solely him, the leader of the gods. From there he unleashed his thunderbolts, expressing his godly wrath. The 12 Olympians included also Hera, Hestia, Demeter, Poseidon, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Hermes, Aphrodite, Hades and Hephaestus. A unregistered trademark in Iliad Olympus is referred as great, long, brilliant and full of trees. In area, on Olympus' northern foot, the mythological tradition had placed the 9 Muses, patrons of the fine arts, daughters of Zeus and the Titanide Mnemis Aeneia Calliope, Clio, Ereto, Euterpe, Melpomene Polyhymnia, Terpsichore, Thalia and Urania. History of Olympus has been turbulent, as its surrounding area was not only a sacred shrine but also a battlefield for the control of the access from Thessaly to Macedonia in the ancient times. In the period of the Ottoman Empire the mountain had been a hiding place and base of operations of cults and armatolai. In Olympus the second Armatoliki was founded, led by Kara-Miklasz in 1489. The action of the cults in Olympus led the Turks to break out their outrage at the cults' ally village of Milia, which they destroyed. In that period Livadi in Olympus became seat of the Armatoliki of Olympus and Western Macedonia, with his first renowned commander Panos Zidros. In the 18th century the Turks had to replace the Armatolai with Muslim Albanian Armatolai who ravaged the countryside of Macedonia. However Olympus Armatolai, even after their capitulation to Ali Pasha, never ceased fighting on land and at sea. Among them who were active there and in nearby regions are Nikotsaros, Georgakis Olympios and the legendary family of Lazario. In the early 20th century, even for some time after the liberation from the Ottoman Empire, robbers activated in the region, best known of them the notorious Georgaulas, while during the German invasion in 1941 the Greek army fought significant battles along with units of New Zealanders and Australians. During the German occupation the mountain was one of the centers of the Greek resistance, while a little later the Greek civil war started here, in Leto Karo. Climbing expeditions. Most probably ancient Greeks never tried to climb Olympus Peak's Pantheon and the throne of Zeus, which they considered to be the 12 Olympians' home. But surely they reached the nearest peak, nowadays called Agios Antonios, from where they had a view of the 2 peaks and where they left offerings, as recent archaeological findings indicate. In the modern era, a series of explorers tried to study the mountain and to reach, unsuccessfully, its summit. Examples include the French archaeologist Léon Henauzet, the German explorer Heinrich Barth, and the German engineer Eduard Richter. Richter tried to reach the summit in 1911 but was abducted by cults, who also killed the Ottoman gendarmes that accompanied him. This was probably politically motivated, as the region was still under Ottoman control. It was just 1 year after the liberation of Greece from Ottoman rule, on August 2, 1913. That the until then untrodden summit of Olympus was finally reached. The Swiss Fra copyright DAO copyright Rick Boissonnes and Daniel Borde-Bovie, aided by a hunter of wild goats from Litokaro, Christos Kakalos, were the first to reach Greece's highest peak. Kakalos, who had much experience climbing Olympus, was the first of the three to climb Mytikas. Afterwards, until his death, he was the official guide of Olympus. In 1921, he and Marcel Kurtz reached a second highest summit of Olympus, Stephani. Based on these explorations, Kurtz in 1923 edited Le Monde Olympe, a book that includes the first detailed map of the summits. In 1928, the painter Vasilis Ithakisios climbed Olympus together with Kakalos, reaching a cave that he named Shelter of the Muses, and he spent many summers painting views of the mountain. Olympus was later photographed and mapped in detail by others, and a series of successful climbings and winter ascents of the steepest summits in difficult weather conditions took place. Climbing Mount Olympus is a non-technical hike, except for the final section from the Scala summit to the Mytikas peak, which is a YDS Class 3 rock scramble. It is estimated that 10,000 people climb Mount Olympus each year, most of them reaching only the Skolio summit. Most climbs of Mount Olympus start from the town of Litokaro, which took the name City of Gods because of its location at the foot of the mountain. From there a road goes to Prionia, where the hike begins at the bottom of the mountain. Ancient and medieval sites. The whole region of Pieria Olympus was declared archaeological and historical site for the preservation of its monumental and historical character. 5 km away from the sea is Dion, sacred city of the ancient Macedons, dedicated to Zeus and the 12 Olympians. Its prosperity lasted from the 5th century BC to the 5th century AD. The excavations, continuing since 1928, have revealed numerous findings of the Macedonian, the Hellenistic and the Roman period. Currently there is a unique archaeological park of 200 hectares, with the ancient town and the sacred places of worship, outside its walls. Many statues and other invaluable items are kept in the nearby Dion's Museum. Pymbalia and Levithra, two other towns in Olympus region, are related to Orpheus and the Orphic mysteries. According to a tradition, Orpheus, son of Apollo and Calliope, taught here the mystic ceremonies of worship of Dionysus. By the sea, in a strategic position, at Macedonia's gates is located Platamon Castle, built between 7th and 10th century AD in the ancient town of Heraclea. Christian monuments. In Olympus region there are also several Christian monuments, among them the highest altitude chapel of Orthodox Christianity, that of Prophytus Ilias, in the same name summit. It was built in the 16th century by Saint Dionysios of Olympus, who also founded the most significant monastery in the region. The old monastery of Dionysios lies in Enipe's Gorge and is accessible by car from Litokaro. It was looted and burned by the Ottomans, and in 1943 it was destroyed by the German invaders, who suspected it was a guerrilla den. Nowadays it has been partially restored and operates as a dependency of the new monastery of Dionysios, that is outside Litokaro. Close to the old monastery is also the Chapel of Birth in a wonderful scenery, in a cave with a spring, welling from a rock, where Saint Dionysios lived at first as a monk. On Olympus' southern foot, in a dominant position in Zyliana Gorge, there is the Canaan Monastery, 8 km away from Caria. It was founded in 1864 and since 2001 it has been restored and operates as a convent. Further west, in the edge of Mavratsa stream, at 1020 m, there is the Agios Triadas Sparma Monastery, that flourished in the early 18th century, possessed great property and assisted to establish the famous Tsaritsani school. It was abandoned in 1932, but in 2000 it was completely renovated and reopened as a male monastery, affiliated to Ilasorna's diocese. Climate. Generally speaking, Olympus' climate can be described as one of Mediterranean type with continental influence. Its local variations is the result of the impact of the sea and the rugged relief of the region. In the lower locations the climate is typically Mediterranean, that is hot and dry in the summer, while humid and cold in the winter. Higher it is more humid and severe, with more intense phenomena. In these locations it often snows all over the winter, while raining and snowing is not unusual, even in the summer. The temperature varies in the winter from -10 AA degrees Celsius to 10 AA degrees Celsius and in the summer from 0 AA degrees Celsius to 20 AA degrees Celsius, while winds are an almost everyday occurrence. Generally the temperature falls 1 AA degrees Celsius per 200 m of altitude. As the altitude rises, the phenomena are more intense and the variations of temperature and humidity are often sudden. The coastal northeast slopes of Olympus receive more rain than the continental northwest, so, as a result, there is a clear difference in vegetation, being more abundant in the first of them. Hottest month is August, while coldest is February. The mountain's highest zone, over 2,000 meters, is snow-capped for about 9 months. In some places the winds gather snow, 8 to 10 meters thick, while in some deep ravines the snow is maintained all over the year. For this Olympus alpine region, recordings have been made in the 1960s in the highest altitude weather station in Greece, that was established on the summit of Agios Antonios, providing a number of interesting data for the mountain's climate. Currently average temperature is -5 AA degrees Celsius in winter and 10 AA degrees Celsius in summer. The average annual precipitation heights vary from 149 cm at Prionia to 170 cm at Agios Antonios, about half of them rainfall and hailstorms in summer and the rest snowfall in winter. The weather may change several times in the same day. Unregistered trademark and summer rainfalls are frequent, commonly as evening thunderstorms, many times accompanied by hail and strong winds. However, water springs over 2,000 meters are scarce and visitors should ensure that they have always water and of course the necessary clothing for any weather conditions. Flora. The research of Olympus plants started in 1836, when the French botanist Aïché studied them. According to this and later studies, the National Park of Olympus is considered one of the richest flora regions in Greece, with about 1,700 species and subspecies, that represent some 25% of Greek flora. Of them 187 are characterized as significant, 56 are Greek endemic and of them 23 are local endemic, that is they can be found only in Olympus, and 16 are rare in Greece or and have there the limits of their spread within northern Greece. Most of those found in lower altitude are the common Mediterranean and Central European species. Jankaria heldreichi, a plant relic of the Ice Age, is of particular interest for the botanists. Currently intense diversity of the landscape, the varying orientation of the slopes and their position in relation to the sea affect locally Olympus climate and so a local microclimate prevails, combined with the geological background and the soil favor the growth of particular vegetation types and biotopes. Generally Olympus' northeast side is densely forested, as it receives the most rainfall, while the southwest one has significantly sparser vegetation. Moreover, there is a clear sequence of the vegetation zones in accordance to altitude. In Olympus there is no such irregularity. It is due to the great microclimate variety, caused by the region's landscape. Flora zones. In Olympus there are generally 4 sequent flora zones, but not clearly separated. Mediterranean vegetation zone. In the altitude between 300 and 500 meters occurs the evergreen broadleaf tree zone and Greek strawberry tree. There occur kermes oak, strawberry tree, Philly latifolia, bay laurel, cedar and others. Of the deciduous species most common are Flaxinus ornis, Montpellier maple, Judas tree, Terebinth, Cotinus cogigria and others. Forest zone of beech, fir and mountain coniferous. The evergreen broadleaf tree zone is gradually replaced by ecosystems of European black pine, that forms compact clusters, with no intermediate zone of deciduous oaks, although trees of these species occur sporadically within clusters of black pine. On the northern slopes of Cyrilakos Valley, at altitude between 600 and 700 meters, there is a high forest of downy oak of about 120 hectares. Currently black pine dominates on the eastern and northern side of the mountain, between 500 and 1,700 meters. In this zone there is also hybrid fir in small groups and scrubs or small clumps, particularly in the lower region and in the sites Naomi and Stalamatia and Polycastro, where it is mixed with black pine and Bosnian pine. In this zone there is also beech. while in the neighboring mountains Ravines and Gullies it creates an extended vegetation zone. In Olympus it is restricted to small clusters, appearing as islets, mainly in more humid locations and the best soils. A particularly rich variety of trees and shrubs is found in Enipe's Gorge. One can see there elm, cherry plum, European yew, hazel, holly, Cornus maes, manna ash, maple and a considerable variety of herbaceous plants. Gorges and ravines are covered by oriental plains, willows, black alders and riverside greenery. Boreal coniferous zone, typical species of this zone is Bosnian pine. This rare kind of pine occurs sporadically higher than 1,000 meters and gradually replaces the black pine, while over 1,400 meters it creates an almost unmixed forest. Over 2,000 meters the forest becomes sparser, reaching to 2,750 meters, thus creating the highest forest limit in Balkans, even in Europe. Another feature of this zone is that over 2,500 meters the trees appear in a crawling form. The region, where Bosnian pine grows, is mostly dry and its slopes are rocky. There are no springs or water streams. The vegetation growing there is adapted to specific local conditions and represented by typical shrubs, gramineaceous, chasmophytes etc., while flora includes many endemic species of Balkans. No forest high mountains zone, beyond Bosnian pine zone follows an extensive zone, without trees, with alpine meadows, consisted by a mosaic of grassland ecosystems, depending on the topography, the slope and the orientation of the ground. In general, this alpine flora with more than 150 plant species, contains snow accumulation meadows, grassy swamps, alpine scree and rock crevices. On the meadows, the rocks and the steep slopes live most of the endemic Olympus plants, among them some of the most beautiful wildflowers in Greece. Half of them are found only in Balkans and 23 only in Olympus and nowhere else. Olympus endemic plants, Achillea ambrosiaca, Alyssum handelii, Asperula muscosa, Aubriata thessala, Campanula aridum, Caramadum avisa, Centria incompleta, Centria liticorea, Centria transiens, Cerastrium theophrasti, Erysymum olympicum, Festuca olympica, Genista saclariades, Jancaea heldreichi, Ligusticum olympicum, Melampyrum ciliatum, Pothesla, Potentilla diorum, Rhynchoxenopus nivalis, Silene dionysia, Silene oligantha, Veronica thessalica, Violastrii, notata, fauna. Olympus fauna, that has not been systematically studied so far, includes considerable variety and is marked by important, rare and endangered species. Large mammals, that lived formerly in the region, like deer, have disappeared. In ancient times there were lions, while at least until the 16th century there were bears. There have been recorded 32 species of mammals, including wild goat, roe deer, wild boar, wildcat, beech marten, red fox and squirrel. There have also been detected 108 species of birds. Many of them, particularly the birds of prey, are scarce. In addition there are the common reptiles of Greek fauna and some amphibians in streams and seasonal ponds, as well as a great variety of insects, particularly butterflies, for which Olympus is famous. National Park, Greece's highest mountain, dwelling of the 12 gods of antiquity, has been the first region in the country to be applied specific protective rules, by its declaration as a national park in 1938. The aim of this declaration was the preservation in perpetuity of the natural environment of the region, that is of wild flora, fauna and natural landscape, as well as its cultural and other values. In addition, the declaration has aimed promoting scientific research along with environmental education for the public and tourist development in the region. Specific laws prohibit all forms of exploitation on the eastern side of the mountain in an area of about 4,000 hectares, that is the core of the park. A wider region, around this core, has been designated peripheral zone of the national park so that its managing and exploitation to be done so as not to adversely affect the core's protection. Nowadays, after a special study, the park has been expanded to 24,000 hectares. Administratively it belongs to Pieria and Larissa's prefectures and specifically to the municipalities de Olympos and Katanis and Ikarantsiempan and Elasornas. Its lowest altitude is 600 meters and its peak, Mytikas, at 2,918 meters. In 1981 UNESCO proclaimed Olympus II Biosphere Reserve I. European Union has listed Olympus in the II significant for birdlife regions of European Union I. It is also registered in the list of Natura 2000 European Network as II Special Protection RII, and II Site of Community Interest I. Olympus National Parks Regulation. The park is protected by specific legislation. Under the II Special Regulation entrance to the park is allowed only by the existing roads and traffic is allowed from sunrise to sunset only on formed paths. The visitor should also know that it is not a loida, entrance to children under 14 years unescorted. Parking in places other than the specific parking lots. Felling, humus transportation, rooting and collecting shrubs, plants and seeds. Hunting any animal by any means all over the year. Collection and destruction of nests, eggs or chicks and generally disturbance and destruction of fauna species. Damage to geological formations. Free movement of any animals accompanying visitors. Access to the region. Olympus Massif is found about in the middle of continental Greece and it's easy to approach from the national and railway network Athens Thessaloniki and from secondary roads that connect towns and villages around the mountain, with principal base for excursions the picturesque town of Litokaro, where there is a lot of hotels and taverns. In addition, on Pieria's coastal zone there are many campsites and lodgings. The nearest international airport is that of Thessaloniki and the closest to Olympus railway stations are those of Litokaro, Katerini and Leptokaria. There is frequent service of KTEL buses and a taxi stand in Litokaro's central square. Pieria and Macedonia Airport in Thessaloniki, 80 km away from Katerini and 150 km from Elasorna. By Traina Athens Leptokaria, Athens Katerini and Thessaloniki Litokaro. By bus Athens Katerini, Thessaloniki Katerini, Katerini Litokaro, Athens Larissa, Larissa Elasorna, Elasorna Kokinopelos, Elasorna Karia. By Kara, to Litokaro via road Pathe, to Elasorna via national roads Athens Larissa and Larissa Elasorna. To Karia via road Larissa Rodia Sycamoni Karia. To Karia via road Pathe and road Leptokaria Karia, or Neos Pantaleimonas Kalipefki Karia. To Kokinopelos from Elasorna via road Katerini Fatina Elasorna or via forest road Fatina Petra Kokinopelos. Hiking trails. Olympus is undoubtedly Greece's most popular mountain. Registered trademark TS impressive height, legendary charm and easy accessibility make it an attraction for thousands of visitors from all over the world. The roads and paths crossing the massif, a network excellently maintained in most of it, provides an opportunity to the hiker and to the visitor with no special mountaineering hobbies or knowledge, to get acquainted with Olympus, the variety of its flora and fauna and its natural beauty. Most important of them is E4 European long-distance path, that runs west of Litokaro towards the peaks, through Ăļɪmpəs Gorge. There is also the National Path 02, that connects the peaks southward to Pelion. In many places there are sitting areas near springs and fountains that offer moments of relaxation and meditation to the visitors. The Forest Service has placed in several locations information signs with a map of the national park and useful guidelines. Visitors who have time enough can perfectly climb to the peak by the second path and then descend by the first, night stopping in one of the refuges. Mountaineering paths. For climbers Olympus is a privileged place. There are perfectly organized paths and hospitable refuges. Olympus mountaineering paths start from Litokaro, Dion and Petra. Summer climbs to the legendary God's Mountain usually start by early June and end in late September. During this season the refuges below the peaks are open and the weather enables a climb without snow equipment and mountaineering experience that winter requires. The climb to the highest peaks in winter can be done only by experienced mountaineers, for which there are also challenging climbing paths on steep slopes. beginners visitors should be limited to the summer months, when refuges operate normally. The two most beautiful trails for exploring Olympus start from Litokaro and reach to the peaks of the mountain. The first one follows əʻlɪmpəs gorging the visitor, after about 5 hours of strenuous hiking and passing the St. Dionysios Monastery, reaches to the site əʻlɪmpəs, where in the past operated a sawmill and nowadays there is a cafe-restaurant with a fountain and car parking spaces, as one can arrive there also by car through an 18 km route. From Prionia, following the well-marked European Path E4, the climber, in about 2.5 hours through a path of unique beauty, arrives to the best-known Olympus refuge, əʻlɪmpəs agapetis. He can rest, have lunch and spend the night, as most climbers do. From the refuge path E4 leads, in about 2.5 hours, to Olympus peaks. At the 10th km of the road from Litokaro to Prionia, at the site əʻlɪmpəs, there is the refuge əʻlɪm. That, after the construction of the road, operates primarily as cafe-restaurant. Along the road there are parking places, where one can stop and enjoy the scenery. 4 km before the end of the road at Prionia, in the site gorges, where there is a car park, starts a second, alternative, path, that leads to Olympus peaks. From this point, after about 5 hours of hiking, passing consecutively the sites Baba, Petrostruga, Skirta and Lemo, the climber arrives to Muses Plateau, where he can rest in two refuges, Oros Olympos and Christos Kakalosi. From here the path to the mountain's peak is relatively easy and one can reach in about an hour. Refuges. əʻlɪmpəs agapetis. The first and even the refuge of the region is at the site oʊʻlɪm at 2,100 m altitude, in the center of Olympios and belongs to Greek Federation of Mountaineering Club. Unregistered trademark T provides 110 beds, water, electricity and telephone facilities, heating, blankets and a restaurant, managed by Maria Zolotta and her husband Dionysus. It operates from May to October, 6 to 10 p.m. The second refuge is westerly, behind Mavritsas Gorge at the site Vrissapools and is accessible also by car from location Spamos. It's managed by IJII section since 1961. It provides 30 beds, a kitchen, water, electricity, central heating and a fireplace. It's open all year round, but to overnight a military license is required. Christos Kakalosi unregistered trademark T is at the southwest edge of Muses Plateau, belongs to Greek Federation of Mountaineering and Climbing that operates it from May to October and provides 18 beds, electricity, blankets, a kitchen and tank water. It is managed by one of the best experienced Greek climbers, the geologist Mihalis Stylas. It is on Olympus' eastern side, 9.5 km on asphalt road away from Litokaro, at 930 m altitude, in Dionysios Monastery Forest. It belongs to the Greek Mountaineering Club of Thessaloniki, operates all year round, mainly as refreshment room and restaurant and can host 30 persons. It's managed by Doltsino family. Geosos Apostoli. It is on Muses Plateau and belongs to the Club of Greek Mountaineers of Thessaloniki. It can accommodate 80 persons, it provides electricity, water, a fireplace and an equipped kitchen and it's open from June to October. It's managed by Dimitris Zorbas. Petrostruga. It's on the second, more common, path to Olympus, it's the same path to reach to Muses Plateau. Currently his refuge is at 1,900 m altitude, surrounded by perennial Bosnian pines. It can accommodate 60 persons, it provides an equipped kitchen, electricity, water and a fireplace and it is open all year round. It's managed by the Hellenic Rescue Team. Reservations can be done calling 2,310,310,649. It provides organized medical equipment and one of the 3 emergency heliports in Olympus and emergency wireless inside and out of the refuge. Emergency refuges, Agios Antonios. Emergency refuge on the summit Agios Antonios. It's equipped with emergency items by the Hellenic rescue team. In the refuge there is wireless for communication in case of emergency. II Kalivor to Christakia II Emergency Refuge in II Magoli Gornii along the path E4, Kokinopelos, Skala. The refuge doesn't provide emergency items but is only for protection from bad weather. The path to the peaks, here I briefly mentioned all the basics one should be aware in the two most common and clearly marked trails of the mountain, from Prionia and Gorgia to the refuges and the final climbs to the peaks. For the other trails one should get information from the mountaineering clubs. II Prionia, Refuge Spilios Agapitos, Peaks EI, from 1100 m to 2100 m at Refuge Spilios Agapitos in a wide, beautiful trail through a forest of pine and beech. From the refuge to the clearly trekking peaks Scala, Scolio, Agios Antonios and to the more difficult Mytikas, one is moving, through trails in good condition, in forest of Bosnian pine and then in alpine scenery. Coin, Mount Olympus and the national park around it were selected as the main motif for the Greek National Park Olympus commemorative coin, minted in 2005. On the reverse, the War of the Titans on Mount Olympus is portrayed along with flowering branches on the lower part of the coin. Above the scene is written, in Greek, National Park Olympus. See also, Greek mythology, list of mountains in Greece, references. External links, Mount Olympus, Greek mountain flora, Management Agency of Olympus National Park, Laboratory of Geodesy, University of Thessaloniki, GPS measurement of the height of the peaks of Mountain Olympus.